Black Hill Energy, heating homes across County Armagh. Fill up your tank for a rainy day with County Armagh's fastest growing fuel company. For latest prices, visit our website at www.blackhillenergy.net or call us today on 028 38 344 223. Black Hill Energy, Ansborough Industrial Park, Lurgan.
Welcome once again to the Eye on the Ball. This is your host, Elaine Ingram. Our guest this week needs no introduction for any sports fan who has listened to, read about or watched anything from football to tennis to golf, the World Cups, the Olympics and a host of other world-class sporting events. Steven Beacom is a hugely experienced sports writer and pundit. He was the sports editor for the Belfast Telegraph for many years and has covered sporting events for the BBC, Sky Sports, UTV and a host of other platforms. He has now channeled some of his vast sporting knowledge into a book that's a must-read for anyone with even a passing interest in sport or sports heroes. 100 Ulster Sporting Legends tells us the intricate stories of household names and names most of us are unfamiliar with or maybe have never even heard of. Steven covers a wide variety of sports in his book, from football, boxing, golf to water sports and even bobsleigh. Yes, that's right, bobsleigh. From the best athletes that Ulster and the world has ever seen, including our very own Caroline O'Hanlon and Oisin McConville. I had the great pleasure of chatting with Steven in, I must say, a rather busy coffee shop in Tesco, for which I apologise for some background noise, but it was well worth it anyway because I could have talked all day to Steven about the stuff that's in this book. We only got to touch on some of the great stories and anecdotes that are in there. It really is a great read, but let's hear from the man himself now. Hi Steven.
Hi Elaine, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I've just had the great pleasure of reading your book, which I picked up last week and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not just saying that because I'm speaking to you. I really, really enjoyed it. Some of the stories and the anecdotes in there were just fantastic.
Thanks very much. It was a joy to write it, to be honest. I was approached in January by a publisher who wanted me to write a sports book about the greatest sports stars from here, and we've called it 100 Ulster Sporting Legends. And I suppose the way I like to look at it is it's 100 uplifting and inspirational short stories about people who have come from here and have been hugely successful in their sporting fields. These people have shown great humility over the years, they've shown great talent, and they've been at the top of their game, and I wanted to celebrate them. And I think Northern Ireland is a place where in sport we certainly punch above our weight, and I hope I did the 100 people that I write about proud in the book.
Yeah, the thing I noticed first of all was that it's not just a list of names and you just write what they did, because it could have turned out being like that, but you have so many anecdotes and so many stories and so many different sports and so many people that I've never even heard of, which was amazing. But the first thing is in your introduction, you said it was 273 and you had to shortlist that down to 100. I'm imagining that must have been the hardest task for you, and I know you alluded to that when you in your introduction you said it was really difficult. So yeah, talk me through that process. It
was so tough, Ali, and that was the hardest part. You're right, because whenever I started researching, I thought I knew about sports stars in Northern Ireland because I've been involved in the industry for 25 years. But the deeper you research into it, the more that you realise that there are some sporting greats that have just been either at the back of your mind or not even in your mind at all. And what is so impressive about this place is we have excelled at so many different sports. I don't think there's a country in the world that has really done what we have done in such a wide variety of sports. Like, it ranges from netball to shooting to football to Gaelic
bobsleigh.
to bobsleighing as well. We have an Olympic Bobsleigh champion, which not many people will know about, but the process...
Like Cool Runnings.
Yeah, that's true. The Jamaicans, of course, and we have one of our own. But the process to get them from all those, the 232 it was, that I would class as sporting greats, to 100 was difficult. But I used a system, and I'm going to refer to it in the book. The beauty about this being a relaxed podcast
well, you called it, I have to say, you called it Hail, but it's actually Hail.
Yeah, well, it is. That's true. And Celtic fans would appreciate that. But yeah, the Hail theory, basically, it relates to H being for history and H being for hero.
Yeah.
So the history was about the history that they have made in their sport, and hero is just about like someone who lifts us, in mind, body and spirit. And then A was about achievement and ability. So it's about achievements that these people have created in sport, and ability is just, the natural talent and the ability to be better than everyone else. The I, which is one of my favourites, is all about inspiration and influence, and it's the inspiration that these people have provided, not just for their families, but their communities, the country as a whole, and the wider world in many respects.
Yeah.
And then the influence, if you see someone exceeding expectations and succeeding in their chosen field, they are a great influence on people. And then the last one was L, longevity. I love the fact that so many of these sports stars have been at the top of their game for years and years. And then there's the legendary status, and I think every single one of the 100 deserves that legendary status. So I put essentially all of those 8 ingredients into a pot, stirred it up, and came out with the 100. There were some that just missed out, and I was really gutted that some didn't make it, but I've got to tell you, Liam, I'm absolutely delighted about the 100 who have made it, and I'm in the process of contacting every single one of them or their families to tell them, and the response that I've received has been overwhelming, because just people are so happy and so proud to be in this list. And you're right in what you say, it's not just a list of what they have achieved, what they have done. I tell their story.
Yeah. I
tell their background, how they actually got to where they are. Tell a little bit about them in their life away from sport. And I spoke to some of the sports stars in the book just to get a feel for them as well. So and the response, as I've said, has been really, really positive, not just from the public, but from the sports stars themselves, which means a lot to me.
Yeah, just interestingly, as a coincidence, one of those people you're talking about, Rhys McClanahan, who's actually the youngest, isn't he? He's
That's
only
right.
21.
Yeah.
And just interestingly, I just spoke to Paul Carher for my podcast last week, and he's his physio.
Brilliant.
For the upcoming Tokyo Olympics.
Yes. Rhys McClanahan is...
So he hasn't actually got the longevity yet because he's only 21, no. But you're envisioning that that's going to be the case because he's actually such an amazing athlete.
I have no doubt that Rhys McClanahan is going to shine at the Olympics next year in Tokyo. I was actually talking to him last week, and he's such a brilliant, humble, yet full of self-belief person. I love Rhys to bits, and yeah, he is the youngest, but even at this stage in his career, what he has achieved in gymnastics is off the charts. Like, this guy is changing Irish gymnastics before our very eyes. He's already a Commonwealth champion. He became the first Irishman to win the European Championships. He got a bronze medal in the World Championships. He's only out of school, like, this kid, when you think about it. And I love him because, do you know what he loves, Ilian? He loves boxers and fighters. And I can tell you a quick story about him. During lockdown, he couldn't go to Dublin and do normal training regimes. Him and his dad put up a shed as an extension to their house. They put the pommel horse in the shed, and in the shed are 3 posters, and one is of Muhammad Ali, the greatest boxer of all time. Another is of Conor McGregor, the Irish UFC superstar, and the other is of the 5 Olympic rings. And he was using that as his inspiration.
He doesn't have Nadia Comaneci in there, no?
No, because he says he's got a fighting mentality and he loves fighters, and he loves the way that they are confident in their interviews about what they're going to do and what they're going to achieve. And that's a brilliant thing about Rhys, because he will always say he wants to win the Olympic gold medal, and I have no doubt that at some stage he will.
That's brilliant. And talking about, we're going to get into the book, I suppose, then. The local heroes for us, we have Caroline O'Hanlon in there. It goes without saying why she would have made the cut. She's an incredible woman, as you say yourself. She's not just an incredible athlete, she's an incredible person. She's a doctor, she's netball, she's the most decorated female in our sport in Northern Ireland. So she is
amazing, a phenomenon, because not only is she outstanding at one sport, she's outstanding at 2.
She probably could be outstanding at a lot more, and you said yourself she's been courted at other sports too.
That's right. Caroline is so talented that just about every other sporting body would love her for themselves, but she has stayed with Gaelic football and she has stayed with netball, and she's become like world renowned in both. And a fantastic lady, just a joy to watch on the sporting field, and what she does away from the pitch is incredible. And you know what, another quick story, an aside about this, my daughter used to play netball in Banbridge, and she actually won a ball at a prize giving ceremony, which was signed by Caroline. And I got in touch with Caroline, and Caroline sent a lovely message to my daughter Sophia to say how pleased she was that she'd won it, and good luck.
So that's a lovely touch, isn't it?
I
suppose she's a doctor, so she does have that bedside manner, and that
Well, she does. Class act.
Yeah.
She's a class act, Elaine. And when you watch Caroline in a ladies' football match, you see a player who the rest of her teammates look up to.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same.
And an unselfish player.
Oh, totally. She's a team player. That's the thing. She's a great individual, but she plays totally for the team. And in netball, she is without doubt the best player from Northern Ireland ever to play the sport of netball.
Yeah, she plays for Manchester. She still play for Manchester?
She's playing over in England, and obviously the whole
League,
COVID thing stopped that. But she's a Super League winner, which in netball terms is like being a Premier League winner in football.
Yeah, exactly.
So this woman hasn't just done it internationally, she's done it domestically as well, and the respect that she has within the whole sphere of netball is incredible. A very, very noted website during COVID looked at the greatest netball players of the past 30 years, and Caroline was the only person from here that made the list.
Yeah. And we have Oisin McConville in there, of course, and you allude to his, struggles that he's had as well, outside of which, all adds to his story and all adds to his brilliance that he's, bounced back from adversity.
Oisin McConville, to me, is like the epitome of inspiration, because he has that extraordinary backstory, and where Oisin has been incredibly brave is he's told that story, and he's helped literally thousands and thousands of other people. He's obviously gone through his gambling addiction, and thankfully he's come out the other side, and now he is providing education for people who are going through those same issues and providing help. And he's such an influential person across Ireland. In many ways, what Oisin did for Crossmaglen and Armagh, you think back to those days and you think, my goodness. And then you look at him winning the All-Ireland for Armagh and playing such a crucial role in the final.
And that
goal, and he took it so well, and it was just pure Oisin McConville. The guy was a scoring machine. And then you look at what happened after his career was finished, and I think he's a very, very brave individual and deserves immense respect and immense credit for what he has done. I think his family can be really, really proud of him.
Yeah, and I'm sure they are, yeah. Who else have we got in there from our parts of the world.
Well, we should mention Pat Jennings, shouldn't we?
Well, I have to mention Pat Jennings
from Newry.
Yeah.
And
you said that the proudest thing was that he had the Jennings Park.
That's right.
Named after him, which would be lovely for all the Carnbane League players to hear, because that's where they play week in, week out.
Aline, I can't tell you how much that means to Pat. Pat Jennings is a guy who's played in 2 World Cups. He's played against the best players in the world. He's been considered the best goalkeeper in the world. He's played for Arsenal and Spurs, and is probably the only man in the history of North London football who is loved and adored by both sets of fans. And yet he tells me that his favourite acknowledgement in life is that park in Newry to have named after him. And Pat is one of those guys who has never forgotten where he came from.
Yeah, and clearly when he said that, that must be.
He tells a lovely story about whenever he was a young lad and he was up in the Newry Mountains working, and then he was basically called down, and the rest is history. And listen, one of the greatest goalkeepers of all time.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. This is a guy who he was beyond 40, played in World Cups 1982, 1986, won over 100 caps, and he's just an icon of sport, period. And the loveliest guy, it hasn't changed from the day and hour I met him, and that's a long, long time ago. My mum still remembers Pat Jennings, and he still has the same hair. And it's always just a privilege to be in Pat's company, and he's such a modest fella.
Yeah.
And those hands are
Those
just
hands are legendary.
giant. Yeah, and everyone knows Pat, and you're talking about longevity. This is a guy who was around from when he was a teenager to 41 years of age, at the very top of his game. And when people talk about Pat, they talk only in the positive. And long may King Pat reign. He's one of my favourites.
Yeah. And I suppose you have Rory Best in there as well.
Rory, yeah, another legend, from this part of the world. And what he has achieved for Ulster and Ireland is incredible, and one of the loveliest guys as well. Again, the respect that he has within the Irish rugby field is off the charts, and what he has done as a hooker, who people doubted him at the start of his career. They thought that he was carrying a bit too much weight, and then this guy went on to become one of the best players Ireland's ever had. He was the captain when they beat New Zealand home and away for the first time.
And the All Blacks.
That's right. Like the fabled All Blacks, Ireland had never beaten them, and there was Rory Best, a lad from here, who was skippering the side to that historic victory. And I think we forget just what Rory Best achieved, because he's just this down-to-earth character who's, in real life, he's a farmer, and that's what he does. But he was a phenomenal player for Ireland and a real inspiration. Like, teammates of his would tell you about his words before matches and his words in team meetings and how they would lift those players up to go out and perform. And he was at the centre of an incredible period for Irish rugby when they were the top team on the planet.
Yeah. There's some really interesting stories in there that of sports that we haven't heard of, and a few that really stood out to me that let's see, you have to tell us about Robin Dixon, the bobsleigh.
Yeah,
I mean, we really need, if you don't mind filling us in on that story, because I found that quite really interesting.
Robin Dixon is one of those great untold stories, Elaine, in many respects. There will be few people who know that Northern Ireland actually has an Winter Olympic bobsleigh champion. He was also the world champion in this particular sport, and this is the remarkable thing about it. He only got into it because someone called Lord Lucan, who your listeners will know all about, said to him to give bobsleighing a go.
He didn't even know what a bobsleigh was.
Had never been in a bobsleigh until he was in San Moritz on a holiday, and Lord Lucan, who since disappeared obviously, told him, why don't you give this sport a go, because he was a chap who enjoyed sort of adventures.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, Robin's in the bobsleigh. He loves it. gets involved with the Great British team, and he becomes a world champion, and he becomes a Winter Olympics champion. And
You couldn't make it up?
they couldn't make it up. Like, it's extraordinary, really. And he's the only person from here to win a Winter Olympics gold medal. And he is now known as Lord Glentoran,
Yes.
which is another quirky fact. And this is a guy who has done some remarkable jobs in his life, you know, working for different organisations, promoting tourism in Northern Ireland. But for me, the best story about him is winning the Winter Olympics, because it sounds so unreal.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned before we come on about the Cool Runnings, and the movie that about the Jamaican bobsleighers. Someone really should make a movie about the guy from Northern Ireland who won
Anybody
a
out there
bobsleigh
listening?
gold.
There's another person that I thought definitely deserves a movie, and you mentioned that as well, was Janet Gray, the water skier, whose story is absolutely extraordinary. She sounds like an incredible woman.
Yeah. Another inspirational figure. Janet Gray is the blind water skier, the multiple world champion. Throughout her family, there was a history of them going blind.
Yeah.
And Janet thought that she was going to be one of the fortunate ones and miss out, but unfortunately, she went blind as well. And her world, as you can imagine, fell apart, and she didn't know what she was going to do. And then sport basically in many ways became a lifesaver for Janet. She went to go water skiing with her husband Paul, and
he was a water skier.
He was a water skier, and Janet found that she was really, really good at it. So the more she practiced, the better she got, and then she became this world-class water skier. You know, you think about it. Water skiing at the best of times is one of the most difficult sports to master. One of my best friends from home and from Anna used to water ski, and I've got to be honest.
I tried it once. It took me quite a while to get up. I did get up for about 5 seconds.
It's really tough, like, you know.
The trick is you have to let the boat pull you up. You don't try and stand up.
That's true. I will remember that the next time I try it. But you think about that. Whenever someone's water skiing, they're seeing it. So imagine closing your eyes for the duration of the time you're out in the water. That's what Janet Gray does effectively, because she can't see. And this is a lady who went on to win multiple world titles. And then
she had more tragedy.
What happens next? She suffers this desperate accident where she nearly died whenever she's out training. And somewhere in her heart and her soul, this lady finds the courage, the fight to come back and win the World Championship all over again.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, she really had to come back from horrendous injuries.
Oh, listen, I list all the injuries in the book, Elaine, and it's just a catalogue. And it's a Hollywood story. It really is. And it's another one for the movies. There's so many in the book that
there are so many stories in this
like
book. Yeah, I mean, I was just completely enraptured by it, by the amount of different stories you have. You even have Eddie Irvine getting punched in the face by Ayrton Senna, which I thought was a nice little aside.
That's true. Yeah.
But maybe we let the readers find that one out.
Yes, Eddie was quite a character. I've been lucky to interview Eddie, and boy does he shoot from the hip. And him and Ayrton Senna went toe to toe, and it's all in the book.
It's all in the
story.
book, yeah. There's lots of different sports, as we said. There aren't as many women as there are men, which is nothing to do with your book. It's nothing to do with anything. I suppose it just shows the way sport is, and hopefully that can be addressed in your next book, because given that you've got, what did you say, 130, or what was it?
232.
So there's definitely a part 2.
Yeah.
In there somewhere. Yeah. Have you got any plans? I mean, how long did it take you to compile?
So the publisher phoned me in January. We had a meeting. If anyone doesn't know, we're actually social distanced here in the Banbridge Tesco superstores, where the book actually is. And
I got mine in Tesco in Newry.
Very good.
And as I said to you, and this is true, I was at the checkout, and she picked up the book and said, Oh, there's a Christmas present.
Yeah, that was lovely to hear, I've got to say.
Yeah, it's true. It's just...
But it was actually in this Tesco superstore in Newry at the Ground Cafe where we are right now that I met the publisher in January. And he asked me about the book. I thought about it. And then I thought, you know what? This is before COVID. I thought, I'm going to do this because it's a celebration of sport. And I've always been a hugely passionate supporter of our sports stars. It doesn't matter what sport they play in. I love to see them do well. I love to see the Northern Ireland football team do well. I love to see the Ulster counties do well in the Gaelic. I love to see our individual sports stars, be they boxers, be they athletes, be they shooters, as there's one in the book as well.
Yeah.
And I support them with all my heart. And I thought this is a great project to be involved in because it was a tribute to the sports stars who have given us so much, let's face it, Elaine.
Especially we really can realise that in the times we're in now, sport has never been as important as it is.
Hugely important. And, you know, through dark days, even if the troubles, like what sport gave this place, to give it light when there was just darkness all around us, and through COVID as well, we've missed our sport. And it's been great. People have got in contact with me to say how much they've enjoyed reading the book because it's given them their sporting fix, which has been lovely to hear. The process was to investigate all of the potential people who could go in the book. And then it was a case of narrowing them down, and we've gone through how we did that with the HAIL theory. And it was tough. I would say it took me maybe about 4 to 5 months putting it all together. But it was a joy to do it because, you know, there are people in the book, Anton Hegarty, an athlete who was the first person from here to win an Olympic medal back in 1920. You've got
you really had to stretch into the archives to find some of them.
That's true.
Because it does span generations.
Yeah, it's not just about today's superstars like Rory McIlroy or even George Best, going back to the 60s and the 70s. It does go back to 1920. The first guy actually is Anton Hegarty. Alicia Scott. I was delighted to get Alicia Scott in because I'm a huge Liverpool fan, and Northern Ireland hasn't had a big history with Liverpool in terms of players, but Alicia Scott was the first king of the Cop, and he won league titles with Liverpool back in the 1920s and is still revered to this day. In fact, if you go across to Anfield, hopefully whenever people can get back to stadiums, there's actually a marble tribute outside Anfield to Alicia Scott. He is one of the 7 men who are considered to have built Anfield in terms of where Liverpool are. So I think that's a lovely touch. But it's all about research. I had lots of help. I phoned lots of people, experts in their field. My brother Neil was outstanding as well. My wife was incredibly understanding, Lindsay, about the whole process, because anyone who's written a book will understand. Sometimes it's long days, long nights.
Yeah.
And my kids, Sophia and Aaron, were brilliant as well because they just supported me every step of the way. So if you're writing a book, you need incredible support from your family and your friends, and you need guidance. You need a lot of patience, and you need time. And thankfully, I got that, and I was delighted whenever we got the book out in the shops, and so far it's been going really, really well, and I just hope people enjoy it because it's a celebration of sport, and it's a celebration of our sports stars who have given us so much.
Yeah, I was just thinking there, you have some families in there. I have to mention the Dunlops.
Yeah. There's 3 Dunlops.
Yeah, and they all make it in there. And
Joey, Robert, and Michael. Yeah, what a family! And another family that we should note, the Chambers brothers.
Yeah, I was just going to say Richard and Peter Chambers. Yeah,
the rowers who won Olympic medals and were world champions. So, how proud must the Dunlops and the Chambers be? But it just shows you, that success can breed success, and the Dunlops, iconic.
I mean, you
family.
see that a lot in football and sports and things like that as well, like families, a lot of football stars and things like that, Gaelic.
That's true.
Especially in the ladies' sport, actually. There's mothers and daughters and everything.
Yeah, that's the beauty about sport in the north, because I think families rally round their own, and one brother or one sister can inspire another family member to go and be the best that they can be. And obviously family's important to me, and I mentioned family a lot in this book about how important it has been to all these superstars, because they've had to have family backing right from the off, and that's where it comes from straight away. You can sense that whenever you're talking to these people. Their journey starts from whenever they were kids and having that family backing, and that family backing has continued to this day, and that's why they've been such a success.
And you picked your favourite, which must have been really, really hard. You do list your top. You
Top
did
15.
Top 15. You don't obviously go into the whole lot, but you do pick your top 15. And I was reading through it before I got to the end. I was trying to guess who it was going to be.
Yes.
I thought it might have been George Best.
Yeah.
But Adam, he was second.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny, Elaine, a lot of people thought it would be George Best, and there's been lots of debate amongst friends of mine and colleagues about who it should be. Here's the thing. Every day I will think of it if, to me, there was four really that came in my mind. Mary Peters was one. She's the only individual Olympic gold medal winner that
and
we've
she's been so
had.
Inspirational with her.
A true inspiration, a huge influence, and with her Mary Peters Trust, she's actually helped in terms of funding a lot of the people that are in this book. Joey Dunlop, the King of the Roads. Mary was the golden girl.
Yeah, and Joey
Dunlop's the King of the Roads. The People's Champion, without question. And then Bestie, who for a point in time was the greatest footballer on the planet. And football is the global game, the beautiful game, the biggest sport in the world. And there was a little lad from Belfast who was the best at it, which is extraordinary in itself. But eventually I plumped for Rory McIlroy as my number one. I think what McIlroy has achieved is off the charts. In modern day sport, Elaine, I'm not sure there's anything tougher than winning a major in golf, because whenever Rory McIlroy or his competitors enter a major tournament, there are 150 odd men in that tournament who can all win it. You can't say the same for a Grand Slam in tennis, for example. There's probably maybe 8 players who can win it.
Yeah. Or even in snooker,
In snooker, maybe you got 4 or 5 who could win a world title. Yeah.
Golf is a different.
Golf is a different scenario altogether, and McIlroy's won 4 majors. And if he wins the Masters, he completes the Grand Slam. And there's only a handful of people who have done that, so he is.
You think he will? Yeah.
I believe he will. I think once he gets over the first round jitters, I think he'll definitely win a Masters, and it wouldn't surprise me if it was in 2021. Then he goes on to a whole different level altogether in the world of sport.
In a washing machine.
That's right. You have really read this book.
I have.
Jerry Kelly. I'm sure some of your listeners will remember Rory McIlroy. He was only like a primary school kid.
Yeah.
And he was on the Jerry Kelly show, which used to be on UTV. And at home he used to practice by pitching the ball into a washing machine. So Jerry Kelly brought a washing machine into his studio. And there you had the young Rory with his wee pitching wedge chipping the ball into a washing machine. And I think that was the first time that he became it became public knowledge that he was a superstar in the making.
Yeah,
and the fact that he's from Hollywood as well, Elaine, makes it even better because he's a Hollywood hero.
Yeah.
And and he's never forgotten where he's came from. He lives over in America now, but he's very proud of his roots. And what a golfer. You see, watching Rory McIlroy in full flight, and when he's at his best, I've been incredibly fortunate to watch all the superstars. It's like watching Lionel Messi. It's like watching Usain Bolt. It's like watching Roger Federer. It's poetry in motion.
And you've seen it all. You've covered every sport there is. You've been to the Olympics, Wimbledon.
I've been so fortunate. I've been at World Cups, European Championships, the Ryder Cup, World title fights.
Are you actually covering Wimbledon?
I've covered Wimbledon, yeah.
I'm
and
so lucky.
I can tell you this, it's probably the best one-off sporting event to cover, because you are treated like a king.
Yeah.
It's not like you're treated in some other sports as a journalist.
Oh yeah, I've been in the queue. I've probably seen you walking by into the lovely parts of it.
But you're treated like a lord. And whenever you go in and do the press conferences, and you're talking to people like Andy Murray and Federer and Djokovic and Nadal and all that, and they're all very gracious. But yeah, Wimbledon, fantastic sport. And much mention in terms of racket sports, we've got Madeline Perry in there,
who
is from
right.
Banbridge, where we are right now. Again, one of the most underrated sports stars that this place has ever produced. Imagine being the third best in your sport in the world, Elaine. Madeleine Perry was the third best, and she won lots of big tournaments around the world. And I do like to note and to write about the more unheralded sports stars in this book, and Madeleine Perry is definitely one. And you talked about Oisin McConville. We should mention 3 other GAA greats who are from around the area. The Down greats, you know, I'll just go through them here for you. Just phenomenal list of guys. Paddy Doherty and Sean O'Neill from the great 1960s triple winning All-Ireland teams, and Mickey Linton, who is a story in himself, 2 All-Irelands in the 90s for Down, and looked upon as one of the nicest guys in sport.
I think he's very nice. He passed me in my driving test.
Did he? Well, he's very good at that as well, but a genuine guy, and truly one of the best Gaelic players I've ever seen. I mentioned it in the book, actually, that when you're watching Mickey Linton in his heyday, and he was roaring past a defender, it was like Mickey was driving the quickest Lamborghini you've ever seen, and these defenders were all on cart horses. What a player, you know. If you could turn back time, Mickey Linton and Peter Canavan are 2 of the players that I would love to go back and see.
Okay, well listen, it's been a real pleasure talking to you, Stephen, and I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed this book. I recommend, not just because I'm speaking to you, I recommend this book to anybody. I think you should get it to anybody who likes sport at all, and even not. It's just because it's about people, you know, even people who aren't into sport. It's about people and, you know, achievements, and it's a very inspiring read. So
thank you, Elaine. I really appreciate your kind words, and I've loved being on the podcast. It's been really kind of you to invite me on. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Eye on the Ball. If so, subscribe to our podcast and to Armagh Eye. If you've any suggestions about what you'd like to hear or any comments at all, feel free to send us a message or leave a comment. And I hope you'll join me next time for The Eye on the Ball.
Black Hill Energy, heating homes across County Armagh. Fill up your tank for a rainy day with County Armagh's fastest growing fuel company. For latest prices, visit our website at www.blackhillenergy.net or call us today on 028 38 344 223. Black Hill Energy, Ansborough Industrial Park, Lurgan.